Exploring Alaska can be both exhilarating and frustrating. On the one hand, every direction you turn, there are beautiful vistas and exciting adventures to enjoy. On the other hand, in a territory so vast and unsettled, where do you start? How far do you go? And how much can you do? For most visitors, their experience in Alaska can only last a few days or weeks. But in that amount of time, it's impossible to see or do more than a fraction of what Alaska has to offer.
In our explorations of Alaska over the last 16 years, we've been able to see the 49th state from top to bottom and from east to west. But our coverage of Alaska's 586,000 square miles is by no means exhaustive. For instance, it would take more than a lifetime just to see all of its 3 million lakes, let alone fish them. And where do you start exploring its 12,000 rivers, its thousands of glaciers, or a coastline measuring far longer than that of the continental U.S.?
And enjoying the landscape is only part of the experience. Each area of Alaska has played different roles in the state's history, and its native and non-native culture also varies across the state. In this show, we'll provide a brief description of each of Alaska's regions, give an overview of some travel options and outdoor activities available in each area, and show some specific adventures we've enjoyed in each one. Alaska can be divided geographically into 5 or 6 separate regions: the North, the Interior, the West, the South Central, and the Southeast. The Aleutian Islands are sometimes classified as their own 6th region, separate from the West. And just as there are differing opinions about the number of regions, there are also no precise boundaries for them.
Let's start from the top, Alaska's Arctic North. From the Brooks Range, which stretches across the northern third of the state, to the boundary of the Arctic Ocean is a region of extremes. From mid-November to mid-January, the sun disappears entirely from these parts, leaving a perpetually frozen wilderness. The permafrost of the Arctic slope can extend to a depth of over 2,000 feet. Only 17,000 people inhabit this vast, harsh area, and the vast majority of them are Eskimo. They depend heavily on the region's resources just to survive. Because of their extreme remoteness and ancient heritage, some of these Eskimo communities rely on harvesting several bowhead whales each season, a massive community project that benefits each member.
They don't think of it as extreme danger because of how they've learned the processes and the traditions of whaling. It's ability and knowledge and experience and skill, and they have the utmost respect for the whale.
You know, one man can hunt and catch a seal or a caribou. He'll feed his family or a few folks, but you get together and you go after a huge animal like the whale, you're going to feed the whole community.
Yep.
Several years ago, we had the chance to visit Barrow, the northernmost town in Alaska, during their whale hunting season. Although the whales showed up shortly after we left, we were still amazed by these rugged, hardworking people and their ancient culture.
The elders are the ones, you know, that are in their 70 to 95 years old, are just waiting anxiously. I mean, that's their whole life is the whale.
Bottom line, nobody goes hungry.
Yeah.
You know, and all those community members or crew members that go down and help butcher the whale, they get a share, a larger share of for helping. Mm-hmm. And once it's brought into the community, all the elders that cannot go hunting anymore, and everybody else that, you know, that
everyone's
not
accounted
able.
for.
Yeah.
But whales aren't the only animals hunted in the Arctic.
That's right. I've enjoyed several successful caribou hunts up here, but other big game options include Dall sheep and brown bear. The fishing up here can be great too. Arctic char, dolly varden, grayling, sheefish, pike, and lake trout are available in the rivers and lakes. To get to the North Slope, you can drive. 855 miles of road connects Anchorage to Fairbanks to Deadhorse near Prudhoe Bay. But to reach remote settlements or towns such as Barrow, flying in is the only option. But for those who can brave the difficulties of travel and the harshness of the environment, the North offers experiences found few other places on Earth.
From the perpetually frozen north to the rain-soaked forest of the southeast. The southeast region extends over 500 miles south from mainland Alaska and is home to 74,000 people. Juneau, Sitka, and Ketchikan are the southeast's largest cities, but Yakutat, Haines, Skagway, Petersburg, and Wrangell are also popular towns to visit. Of the 1.5 million visitors to Alaska each year, over half come by cruise ship, and the southeast is prime cruise territory. A sheltered waterway winds from Washington State up through British Columbia and finally through the southeast. Mountains, glaciers, and whales are abundant here, and so are trees. This region enjoys the mildest weather in the state and some of the heaviest precipitation. Some areas receive between 150 to over 200 inches of precipitation annually, creating the largest temperate rainforest region in the world. And what better way to see the forest than to fly through it?
There's few other ways people can get in the trees and really be in a forest like this. We've catered to the widest demographics we can and got them into a place in the environment that very few people can get to. So that's the goal of our adventure.
But if a zip line seems too extreme, there's a more leisurely option. In Juneau and Ketchikan, you'll find cable trams that provide breathtaking views of the spruce-covered mountains. But in the southeast, there's one more way you can use a steel cable, pulling up giants from the deep.
Oh, he feels good. I hesitate to use the term spectacular because we've used that so many times up here in Alaska, but this was an unusually spectacular day in as much as we had 3 100-pound halibut on at the same time.
One of the best days of halibut fishing we've ever had happened here. Near Elfin Cove, we released 3 halibut in the 100-pound range, 1 200-pounder, and still kept our limit with 30 to 80-pound fish. All the while, we were surrounded by whales.
We had whales around us continuously the entire day. Not just a few, but the most whales I've ever seen in one day around us. In 14 years, that's saying something.
But besides halibut, all 5 species of salmon can be caught here in saltwater or freshwater.
Oh my gosh.
Other freshwater options are the steelhead run and year-round Dolly Varden, cutthroat trout, or rainbow fishing.
No doubt about it, fish have played a major role in the history of the Southeast. Its rich waters have supported humans for several thousand years. The Haida and Tlingit cultures have left an indelible mark on the Southeast, and some of their history is preserved in the world-famous totems they've created.
The story itself can't be, you can't look at it and expect to be able to read it. It has to be told to you. I've been at it for about 40 years, and the thing about this particular place, the carving shed here in Saxman, we have many people coming from the lower 48 and all over the world to be able to see some carvers working. It's pretty important not only for the city of Ketchikan and also for the young generation of interested carvers, and so that way it would be a continuation.
Visiting the totem parks and clan houses of Ketchikan and Sitka is like stepping back into a simpler time. But the more recent history of the Southeast describes a time that was anything but simple. The Klondike Gold Rush of the late 1890s shaped the Southeast faster than any other period. The towns of Skagway and Haines were born practically overnight and became gateways to the gold fields in Canada. This was truly the Wild West, complete with saloons, brothels, and gunfights. Today, visitors can easily ride the 110-mile route from Skagway to the headwaters of the Yukon River on the White Pass and Yukon Route Railroad, completed in 1900.
It's easy to see why the Southeast is one of Alaska's most popular destinations. But coming up next is a less visited region that seems to be from another world. Stretching over 1,000 miles west from mainland Alaska, the Aleutian Chain divides the cold-bearing sea from the warmer Pacific. This string of volcanic islands is the most desolate region in all of Alaska. There are almost no trees, and only a small variety of animals can survive here. Visiting these islands truly feels like a trip to another planet.
You could be anywhere from the Hobbit land to New Zealand. It is a special place.
It's an adventure getting here, it's adventure hunting, it's adventure getting home.
I tell you, it was an adventure. It's not just the hunt that was the adventure, it was getting here. Last year, the volcanoes started going off on the islands, and I really didn't like my meat well done, so you gave me the opportunity to get back here this year. I was stuck in Anchorage for 3 days, flew around over Dutch Harbor for hours, and finally rode the cargo plane in with everybody else. So these islands are beautiful, but I understand why there aren't many people here because it's hard to get to.
The Aleutian Islands are famous for having some of the worst weather on Earth. Fierce storms can hit the islands year-round, grinding boat and air travel to a virtual standstill.
ACA is reporting about 3 miles of visibility, and the ceiling's been going up and down, so anywhere from 500 up to about 1,200 feet. So good enough to go take a look, and hopefully when we get out there, it cooperates where we can get down and see something and go in and shoot the approach for the runway there. So keep our fingers crossed. So hopefully we won't have to make a return trip back here.
Because of the difficulty of travel, we've only been able to make a few trips to this region, visiting the islands of Umnak and Atka. Now, we found healthy populations of trophy-sized reindeer. Once domestically raised on the islands, they now roam free and are thriving. These hunts are entirely different from the caribou hunts of the North Slope. The rolling country here creates a whole new set of challenges.
What I like about Alaska hunting is that, especially in the Aleutians, you're by yourself. You can come up here and get away from a lot of the people, and the hunting is tremendous. You got a lot of game to deal with. Kind of a new frontier out here. We're trying to develop the hunting out here in cooperation with the natives to better their communities and offer some nice hunts for outsiders to come in and harvest some of these animals.
But the fishing in the Aleutians can be different too. Here we experience the traditional native way of halibut fishing, by hand line. Salmon, rainbows, and steelhead are also found in these islands, as well as a variety of sea ducks. For those who overcome the extremes, the Aleutians give an adventure found nowhere else. Further inland, the western region of Alaska is famous for its bears. The island of Kodiak is home to the largest brown bears in the world, and Katmai National Park on the Alaska Peninsula holds the world's highest concentration of brown bears. Over 2,000 bears are estimated to live in the park, and their high numbers are supported in part by the largest sockeye salmon runs in the world. Up to 40 million or more sockeye return to Bristol Bay each year, and millions survive the nets to make their way inland. As a result, the rainbows and grayling here can become huge, gorging on the overabundance of salmon eggs.
But the fish and bears aren't the only animals that grow to enormous size here. The western region has historically produced the biggest moose of the state. Almost all my moose hunts have been in western Alaska, and although I'm yet to meet the monster over 70 inches, the ones I've harvested have still amazed me with their size. This area of Alaska cannot be reached by road. Larger towns such as Dillingham, Bethel, and Nome have regular airline service with Anchorage, but the outlying villages or wilderness can only be reached by bush plane or river.
This western region holds about a quarter of Alaska's residents, but a little over 100 years ago, it was the most populated region in the state. The Nome Gold Rush began in 1898 when 3 men discovered gold there. By the next year, 10,000 prospectors had arrived, and a year later, 30 miles of beach was lined with tents. In all, about 20,000 people swarmed to the area for gold, and the city of Nome was born. Today, only about 3,500 live here among the relics of Nome's golden days. But fortunately for visitors, gold of another kind is still abundant in western Alaska. Between the northern Brooks Range and the southern Alaska Range lies the interior of Alaska. In the summer months, this can be the warmest region in the state, with temperatures close to 90 in July and August. Fairbanks is the hub of activity in the interior and can be reached by road or air. The most popular destination in the interior is Denali National Park. Covering 6 million acres, the park is larger than the state of Massachusetts. Plenty of room for its 400,000 yearly visitors to spread out and enjoy views of the 20,000-foot peak of Denali. Like the park, the rest of the interior is also home to plenty of moose, bear, caribou, wolves, and eagles.
Popular activities in the interior include ptarmigan hunting, duck hunting, pike fishing, and stream fishing for grayling, dolly varden, and rainbow trout. Several rivers bring salmon all the way into the interior, but by the time these fish reach this far inland, they may have traveled upstream almost 1,000 miles. These well-worn salmon are often too deteriorated to be kept and should be released unharmed. But outdoor activities in the interior aren't limited to just fishing and hunting. Many visitors enjoy trying their hand at gold prospecting, and some get pretty serious about it.
When winter rolls around, Fairbanks becomes the bright spot in the interior region, especially between February and March. Over 70 teams of artists from several countries converge on Fairbanks for the World Ice Art Championships. Huge multi-ton blocks of ice are carved and assembled into spectacular sculptures, some over 2 stories high. After the competition, visitors can enjoy the pieces for the rest of March. It does take a bit of travel to enjoy Alaska's interior, but coming up next, we'll discuss the last and most accessible region, the South Central.
Most of Alaska is not accessible by road. Boat and plane travel has to be planned and scheduled. But the South Central region is different. From the bottom of the Kenai Peninsula to the edge of Prince William Sound to the heart of the Wrangell Mountains, you can get there by driving.
You can find the 5 species of salmon all over South Central in saltwater or freshwater. And there are numerous opportunities to access freshwater fishing right from the road system. We've had great halibut trips from Homer, Seward, Whittier, and Valdez, and the scenery of Prince William Sound and the northern Gulf Coast rivals that of the Southeast. And just because it's accessible doesn't mean it's less impressive. The drive south from Anchorage to Seward or northeast through the Matanuska Valley take in some of the best views of Alaska.
And the variety of convenient adventures is also impressive. From Anchorage, you can easily drive within range of 3 glaciers that can be accessed on foot or by a short boat ride. Or an easy drive north can take you to Talkeetna for a flight-seeing tour of Mount Denali. But with a little more time, you could drive into the Wrangell Mountains and see one of the most amazing but overlooked places in Alaska.
Roughly $250 million worth of copper was extracted from this contact point. Okay, that's in 1938 dollars. Today, that's several billion dollars.
The Kennecott copper mine began in the early years of 1900 and took advantage of the richest concentration of copper yet discovered in the world. The histories of its discovery, the construction of the copper mill, the railroad to get the ore out, and the 2 towns that supported it are amazing stories of ingenuity and endurance in an otherwise impossible location. The 100-year-old remnants of the operation are being preserved, and tours are an unforgettable experience.
16 years haven't been enough to cover all there is to see and do in Alaska, much less the last 22 minutes. But really, you're in for an unforgettable experience no matter which region of Alaska you choose to explore. In a land of superlatives, it's hard to be disappointed. One of the most convenient ways to explore Alaska is in an RV. For your own do-it-yourself adventure, call ABC Motorhome and Car Rental at 800-421-7456 or visit abcmotorhome.com.